recording. Again, if you have any questions while Daria is talking, just put them in the chat and I will get them to her and we'll get them answered. Okay,
Okay, we ready?
let's do it.
Okay, great. So, yes, my name is Daria Harvey. I'm a professional organizer and I'm the owner of Your Organized Life. Normally, for the Nurtured Nest, I do a class all about toys. What are good toys for our children? How many toys do our children need? How should we organize them? If I have too many, what do I do? So that's a really fun class. I love to teach it. I spent some time as a preschool teacher, so it just combines two of my loves. But tonight, I'm here to talk about organizing your pantry. I get a lot of requests for pantries. It's just an area that having it organized is going to make a big difference in your life. It's going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to know what you have, know where to find it. It's going to make preparing meals easier. It's going to make shopping easier. You'll save money because you won't be buying things that you already have. So it's just a great project to do. And since we're all stuck at home, social distancing, maybe it's something that you would have time to tackle. So I'm going to tell you what I do if I were to come into your home to organize your pantry. So generally this may take, 2 to 4 hours, depending on how large your pantry is. So maybe that's something you want to tackle when the children are asleep, or, if someone in your household can distract them, because, it's going to take a solid, block of time. So the very first thing that I do is I remove all the food. It sounds crazy, but this is the way to go at it, is to, take out all the food. And so make sure that your table and your counters and things like that are cleared off, because you're going to start sorting the food into categories. And some of the categories that I sort into, if I were to come into your home, are baking items, breakfast items, things that are, like salty snacks, sweets and treats, beverages, um, things that you might use as a side dish. Also things that are, helpers, maybe rice, pasta, taco shells, panko, breadcrumbs, things like that. Maybe you need to have an item for, dog treats or dog toy, things for your dog or your pet. Someplace for maybe your onions and your potatoes. So you need to come up with categories that make sense for your life. Maybe you have baby items in there, you have formula, whatever it may be. You're going to take all those items out of your pantry and place them into categories. The next thing you're going to want to do is, this is the perfect time for you to wipe down, all the shelves, vacuum out the bottom of it, just get it good and clean. I always just use like a, non-toxic cleaner like Thieves, or, maybe just a little soapy water, something to clean out the pantry. If you want to add shelf liner, this is a really good time to do it. I've seen people, like on Pinterest, if you want to go crazy, you can paint the inside of the pantry, you can put cute wallpaper, go crazy if you want to. I myself just went down to Walmart and got some cute shelf liner. And I prefer the removable shelf liner because it's just easier to scrub, and over time, if it gets a little bit gross, you can just throw it away. And then also, if you have, wood shelves on your pantry, that liner isn't going to damage the wood. If you have wire shelves, there is a product, and it's escaping me right now, but and we're gonna, I think maybe, put something, on the website or whatever. We'll find a way to get it to you. But it's a product that essentially turns those wire shelves into a solid surface. So it's a very thick plastic that you can put on top, and there's even like a little drop down part that covers the drop down wire part. So almost as if it looks like a wood shelf, and it comes in different colors. So something to think about as well. So now that you've got your food grouped into zones and you've got your pantry sort of prepped, you need to ask yourself, a series of questions to figure out where those zones are going to go back in your pantry. So, how often do you bake? I've had some clients that are like, we bake every weekend. And I have other clients who are like, once a year. Clearly, the once a year people, that baking stuff is going to go on a high shelf. If the people who bake every weekend, that needs to be more accessible. People who, similarly, if they entertain a lot, those things are going to go in a more accessible place. For other people, they can go at the top or back of the pantry. Um, if your children, are they allowed to access their own snacks or not? So, these are sort of decisions that you need to make in thinking about where you want to put that food back into the pantry. Usually breakfast items and snacks usually go kind of front and center. Also, your canned goods, where are the canned goods going to go, and the like. So think about the zones that you want to, place your food into. The next decision you really need to make before you start putting your food back in the pantry is, are there products, well, I think I'm telling you this information now so you can think about it now before you start your project. But usually when I go to a client, I'm going to have these products with me so that I can use them as needed to finish off the client's pantry. For instance, I almost always tell every client the back of your pantry door is prime real estate. Use that space. The racks that you can drill in are wonderful. I get those usually at Home Depot. I know, like, sometimes places have them where they hook over the top of the door, but those tend to move back and forth a little bit on the back of the door. And so you do want something that screws in. I've got the standard issue hollow door on my pantry. I have had a rack on it we've lived in this house for, gosh, about 20 years now. It was one of the first things I did. I put cans on there, no problem. I've never had a problem. So it's, that's good real estate to use. Similarly, if you have a very deep pantry, I'm gonna, bring bins, whether that is a plastic bin or a basket or, whatever might be within your taste or your budget, so that I can use the full depth of that shelf. I'm gonna, take a bin and, put a bunch of things inside of it. We'll get to that later. Um, you know, but that way you pull the bin out, you grab what you need, and you put it back. In fact, I have one of my own bins, so I'm going to pick it up now. Um, this is my bin. We eat a lot of nuts. This is a bin I got at Target a long time ago. I personally like solid bins, so I don't see all the junk and stuff that's inside of it. So this is, my nuts, so I can pull out, my walnuts and my pecans and my peanuts, but yet I don't see it all. Also, because it's fairly deep, this sits on my little side shelf perfectly. I obviously measure before you buy. So it just makes it easy to pull it out, grab what I want, and push it back in. So another product that's fun is the Container Store makes these handled bins. So it's very easy. They're clear. So again, that's just personal preference. Once upon a time, I'm not using this one currently, but once upon a time, I lined it with shelf paper so that you couldn't see what was inside. And I had, like teas. There again, just pull it out, grab it. Another thing, this doesn't have to do with your kitchen pantry, but I put all my hair products in there in one of these up in my bathroom because my hair takes a lot of product. And so I pull it out and I'm like, oh, do all the gels and the conditioner and everything like that and push it back in. So these are great. These are from the Container Store. So another thing I think about as I'm putting food back into the pantry is, do I want to decant anything? Some people really like, the way natural ingredients look in their pantry. So for instance, and I'm one of those people. So I have my oats we eat a lot of oatmeal in one of these glass jars that I got at Target. Now, if you have small children, you're not going to want glass jars. You're going to want, something plastic. But, maybe if you don't bake very often, you would want your, flour and sugar and cake flour and things like that in these type of jars up at the top, as long as you don't have a climber. So something to think about is, do you want to decant your food? This is a very popular cereal. So you just you see that decanter. Now, for me, I decanted my cereal because we used the same types of cereals over and over again. My family had their favorites, and so I wasn't buying lots of different things. So everyone knew what was in there. We also didn't go through cereal a lot. My kids just weren't really huge cereal eaters. If I have a client that's like, oh my gosh, sometimes I buy this, sometimes I buy that, and we go through a box a day, well, then it doesn't really make sense for you to decant it. You're just taking up too much of your time. So ask yourself those kinds of questions. Another thing that I really like are these OXO containers. They pop, the lid pops, and so it keeps everything in there super fresh. And the thing that I like the square ones because pantries are square, so you can really, nestle these into the corners if need be. And these are also stackable. And so basically, I want to be able to utilize the full depth of a shelf in the pantry as well as the height. So that's the way I'm going to maximize the space in a pantry. So, okay, just going to make sure that I'm talking about everything I want to talk about. Yeah. So another thing that's handy, for the corners of a pantry is to put a Lazy Susan in there. Oh, the OXO bins from graham crackers, you can get them on Amazon, and you can also get them from Bed Bath & Beyond. Sometimes Target has them. One of the things you'll see at the end is I have a list that I've created in Amazon that has all the products that I use constantly for my clients. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for you to be like, oh, this is where this is, and this is, so kind of like my favorite products for a pantry organization job. So I have a list already created for you guys. So Lazy Susans are good in the corner of a pantry to hold like, maybe oils or salad dressings or bottles of things. There are Lazy Susans that are double decker if you have very tall shelves. There are Lazy Susans that have lips on them if, like a side on them in case, you have anyone who thinks it's going to be fun to spin those. So they make several different kinds. So sometimes things get lost in those back corners. So that's an option for that corner space. Also, and you'll see this on my Amazon list, there are can organizers, and they just kind of like roll down, almost like you see at the grocery store. Now, if I have a client who's like, I always have corn, I always have crushed tomatoes, they have multiples of the same type of, items, this type of organizer is awesome for them. But if I have someone who's like, I've got one can of lima beans and one can of, corn and one can of this and one can of that, and it's just kind of all over the place, that might not really make sense for them because then they're going to have to like dig back behind to get the can that they want. So maybe for someone like that, the risers are better. And you're going to want risers that have like a fairly deep shelf to it so that the full can sit on the shelf. And on my website, I have a gallery of photos, kind of some before and afters, and I've got a couple on there that are pantries, and you'll see how I've used those risers. So, and then, once you've decided which foods you want to decant and where your zones are, then you start, putting your food back. Now, when you decant something, it's kind of a good idea to take like a garage sale sticker and put it on the bottom with the expiration date if you want to. Um, we use oats fairly, often enough that I know they're not going to go bad. But now my flour, I feel differently about because I don't bake very often. So these all sorts of questions that are, you have to ask for yourself that um, pertain to your family. So once I've got everything decanted, I've put things in bins, then, start to place them back in the pantry into the zones that make sense for your family. Add cute little chalkboard labels or, something. You always say something can be organized and beautiful both at the same time. I mean, you're going in that pantry probably what, 5 times a day at least. It's kind of nice to open it up and be like, oh, it's pretty, you know? Um, I think that's kind of the gist of what I do when I organize someone's pantry. That's kind of like the quick overview. Um, like I said, though, it does take a chunk of time. Don't forget when you're moving your food out in the first place, putting it into your zones, that's when you need to look and see if it's expired and to get rid of it. Or sometimes maybe there's something you're like, why did I buy this? Like I had good intentions, but now I'm never actually going to make that meal. Or that's a little too Martha Stewart for me. So put that aside and take it to the food cupboard, the food pantry.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sure.
Really quick, while oh, got a bad echo there.
Oh,
Uh, okay. No.
I didn't hear it echo.
Okay, well, good. I'm going to quickly share, I'm going to pull up my screen so people can see your shop on Amazon. And I just wanted to share, guys, like a lot of influencers that are out there, Daria's shop that is on Amazon. If you end up buying products from her shop,
That's
she does a little token. So if you do decide to go that route, it would be pretty cool if you could support her business as well. But I sent you guys the link. I sent the link to the Amazon store and the link to the before and afters on her website. I'll pull up the Amazon shop and we'll be open for questions for the next few minutes. This inspires me to can you talk about spices, my nemesis?
a lot of people. It's a lot of
Sure.
people's
Yeah.
nemesis. So also I've got so first of all, before I say the Amazon shop, that the list I made of products, should you choose to buy through that, you don't pay any different amount. Like they don't bump up your amount. It's the same cost you'd normally pay. They just give me a few pennies. So I also have a kitchen cabinet organizing list, and I have some great products for organizing spices in there. Spices, if at all possible, should go near your stove because that's where you'll be using them. They make a product that it's kind of like it goes into your cabinet and it's like U-shaped, because I find that in a lot of houses that I'm in, those cabinets right next to the stove are kind of narrow. And so you're like, people are putting their spices in there and then you're having to like pull them out. And so this kind of it lines the sides and the back, and it's double decker. So you can get quite a lot of spices, organized in that fashion, and you can go up to the second shelf if you need to. It leaves a little space in the middle. That's where we put like maybe your spray and your olive oil. I don't put a lot in there because you are going to have to pull it out to access the spices. Make sure they're in alphabetical order. And I always encourage people to buy the very smallest container that you can, because spices are at their best for 6 months or less, or less. So, if you buy a super big one, it's just not, the flavor isn't going to be there. So get the small one, and then you also, it's easier to find a spot for it. They make a product that it's like 3 drawers, and you pull it out and then it kind of pulls down, and it holds, I think, like 8, maybe 10 per shelf of spices. And so that's, just kind of like in a little square yeah, it holds a lot within it. That's also on the Amazon list. So those are two great ways to organize your spices. Also, you know, don't be afraid to make a cute, like little, cake stand or tray and put on your salt and your pepper and your that you use all the time, and just make it a little decorative, like a little plant or, and kind of spread the love that way so they're not all in the same cabinet. Does that help?
Sure, Dana would say yes if she. Oh,
Oh,
yes,
she said
if
yes.
she says
Good,
yes.
good, good.
She chimed in and she says, "What about cans of food?" This is actually my problem too. I'm a little overstocked with cans right now. Um, but corn, tomatoes, pasta sauce. What would you recommend for that?
So for the cans, either your door on the back of your door in the organizer, the wire organizers, or on a shelf. I always make sure that if you've got the risers that, like, let's say you've got three corns, they're behind each other, right? So if you have multiples, put them behind, and if you don't want to get the risers, that's fine, but maybe you've got four cans of diced tomatoes, so you've got one, two, three, and then maybe one on the top, if that makes sense. One of the nice things about organizing your pantry is you're not going to have that need to, like, to overbuy, because that happens with a lot of people. They're like, I've got 12 cans of corn, because maybe you didn't know you had some, and then you went and you bought some more. And so then all of a sudden you've got way too much corn. But if you always know this is where I keep my corn and I have 4 cans and I use 2 cans for a recipe, well, then when I make my list, I'm going to put 2 more cans on. So it streamlines it so you don't have an overabundance. Now I have people who, they're like, but I love to shop at Costco and I have all this stuff, and that's fine. But a pantry, you know, it's physics at a certain point. It's only so big. Like, we can do these things to maximize our space, but at a certain point, you only have so much space. So maybe that's when you have a different place for overflow, which is totally fine. Maybe that is an enclosed cabinet in your garage, or maybe that's, in your laundry room. Wherever is fairly accessible is your overstock, which should also be organized so that it's very easy to fill back in. Does that help?
Oh, yep, and thank you. So, well, cool. Well, we're about at the end of our 30-minute time. I know that this is just giving me just a few sparks to get started. Sometimes it just takes conversation of doing something to actually make yourself do something. So it's I was sharing with Daria that I often will do this like once a year. And I'm with you. I'm the corn hoarder. We have a ton of, I'm always thinking like trying to put it in a recipe. I don't know. But we have a lot of creamed corn that is actually going to go to, oh, and beans. They're going to the food the food pantry, and this is actually a great time to do it, especially with those canned goods
Yes,
if they're not expired.
definitely.
To drop them off. I know if you were in the Holly Springs area, I do know that our Play It Again Sports down here is being a collection, so you can just drop them right off on their curb to take over to the food.
Awesome.
So, okay, guys. Well, thank you. I'm gonna throw one more comment out there, is just to make sure you're following us on social media. We've got a couple more tomorrow night. We're gonna do some mental health strategies for the family.
These crazy times.
I will be attending. Maybe I need to have my husband sit on that one too. And Thursday we're doing from trash to treasure. So Irene, Gouge is going to take everyday things and help us make some sensory activities, and that's really good, like toddlers through elementary school, because her kids are upper elementary school, and they were doing some of the things. So we hopefully will catch you again later this week. And happy organizing. Take care. Thank you, Daria. And
It's my pleasure.
once we get through all this, we do hope to meet you all in person and see you in one of our classes. So, bye.
Bye.